Business has always been about turning a profit, making money. But can it stand for something more? Something beyond dollars and cents? We think so. We think that today, business has a higher calling, a purpose to be fair and just, to do right by their workers, customers, communities, and the environment. And it turns out companies successful doing that also do better for their bottom line. When you see the Just Capital seal, it means this company is a force for good. Visit justcapital.com to learn more.
Good evening and Happy New Year. Did you see that rainbow out there this evening? It's the rainbow we've been waiting for. Good evening. This is Mottek On Money. We're doing it live right here, weeknights in the 5 o'clock hour. Mottek On Money 5 nights a week for you, live on the air here in 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms. 2024 getting off to a rough start on Wall Street, down 2 days in a row. We did see the Dow pump to a record high yesterday, but that was about it. Other than that, we saw a down day mostly yesterday and again today. Stocks finishing lower today after the notes from the Fed's last big meeting showed policymakers had a high level of uncertainty about their interest rate projections and did not rule out further rate hikes. That spooked the market, with the Dow coming in for a closing loss of just about 285 points. The S&P 500 slipped 38, and the NASDAQ finished down by 174 points. The notes from that big meeting that we had in December, the Federal Reserve policymakers released today, show that almost all of the Fed's policymakers have penciled some easing into their forecast for this year, but an unusually elevated degree of uncertainty was attached to those forecasts. That's the words used in the notes. The Fed funds futures traders pulling back on the likelihood now of a first interest rate cut arriving by March. But it's widely expected now that more rate cuts from the Fed by year-end than the three-quarter-point moves implied in policymakers' December projections now on the table. The message from the Fed's December meeting, according to MarketWatch, is that policymakers are behind the curve on how quickly inflation has fallen. According to the chief economist at the Wilmington Trust, which has about $80 billion in assets under management. We did see bond yields slipping a bit. The yield on the 10-year note down to 3.99%, snapping three straight sessions of rising yields, as we've seen mortgage rates actually tick higher recently. We also heard from the Richmond Fed President, Tom Barkin. He said that the timing and pace of any changes in interest rates this year will be determined by whether inflation is still coming down and how well the economy is doing. Fallout continues from the resignation of the president of Harvard. She wrote a big op-ed article in the New York Times today. Also, of course, we're watching what's happening in the Middle East with focus of attention now in the Red Sea. Also, the U.S. and 12 allies issuing what amounted to a final warning to Houthi rebels to cease their attacks on vessels in the Red Sea or face potential targeted military action. The Yemen-based militants have carried out at least 23 attacks in response to the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, which continues. The attacks by the militants in the Red Sea have been happening since December 19th. Remember the meme craze? Well, AMC stock, one of the meme stocks, now down about 84% over the past year, hitting a new low today. We'll take a closer look at that coming up later this hour. Oil futures settling a bit higher today on reports of fatalities following explosions at a ceremony held to mark the 4-year death of an Iranian military officer assassinated by the U.S. Oil prices also found support in the back of reports that Libya's largest oil field has been shut down due to protests. Coming up, I'll talk to one of the leading tax advocates here, taxpayer advocates, that is, in the U.S., and that is Grover Norquist, the leading taxpayer advocate, as far as I'm concerned, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Will be joining us live later this hour for the latest on what's happening in Washington. More businesses closing as the new year begins. We'll be joined live later this hour by Angela MARSDEN, small business hero here in Southern California, owner of Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill in Sherman Oaks. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, geopolitics, politics, the whole works tonight. Joining us live now for our occasional Frankenstein conversation. Yep, you guessed it, the one and only Ben Stein. Joining us live now, Ben Stein, veteran financial and political commentator, economist, attorney, presidential speechwriter, author of numerous books, game show host too, host of Win Ben Stein's Money, an actor famous for his role in the economics professor in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and one of the most famous scenes in American cinema. You made our day, Ben Stein. Thank you very much. Happy New Year, sir. Thanks for coming to the line this evening for Frankenstein.
Happy New Year to you, Frank. I must say I was really chuckling as I heard you running through the list of your topics today, because I thought to myself, well, I think we've heard a lot of this before, and we'll hear a lot of it after. And the main thing is, as Samuel Johnson, the greatest essayist in the English language, said, in times of uncertainty, what you need is ready money. And I keep thinking that's such a wonderful, wonderful suggestion.
Ready money, and we are ready to have you talk about all of that. Ben Stein, it's a special day, of course, because we had that magnificent rainbow out there this afternoon. Perfect rainbow weather with that sun shower here in Los Angeles this afternoon. And I don't know if you saw it from Beverly Hills, but it was absolutely spectacular here. It looks like it's finally faded away now, but it was up there for quite some time. So very special. Hope everybody in the audience here had a chance to catch that this afternoon. Absolutely magnificent and majestic. So Ben Stein, give us your view of things here as we head into the new year with the Fed even emphasizing the word uncertainty here about rates and the economy. How are you feeling as we head into 2024?
I think things are pretty darn good. I mean, as a person who is not a huge fan of Mr. Biden, I have to say things are looking up for him in a way that I think would have been inconceivable just a few weeks ago. The economy is extremely strong. Inflation is falling off. Prices are not lower than they were a year ago in any commodity that I can think of or any service I can think of. But the prosperity is everywhere, and I see people living lives beyond their wildest dreams. And it's an amazing commentary on the power of money, the power of the Federal Reserve just slamming down the accelerator and producing money at an incredible rate. I was terrified about COVID, and that led to inflation, no doubt about it. But it also led to amazing prosperity. And will the prosperity last? I don't know. I just know that there's a reason that all those people are coming across the border. There's a reason that so many people get up and go to work, although also a lot do not get up and go to work. Things are pretty darn good here in America. And I'm here in Malibu as we speak, looking out at the ocean and looking at the very, very last rays of the sun for the day. And I keep thinking, gosh, life in America is incredibly great. And the fact that one corporation is doing well one day and one is doing badly the next day doesn't really mean much. People who get an education learn habits of hard work and thrift, do a few simple things in terms of investing, just simple, basic things, really have a great life here in America. And here in Southern California, I'm in Malibu. I'm sorry to say I didn't see that wonderful rainbow. But gosh, this is a great life we have here in America. Let's take the first few weeks of the year to be thankful for it instead of moaning and complaining about it as we usually do.
On there live with, you guessed it, Ben Stein. And, of course, many people aspire to have Ben Stein's money. You did a great job on that game show years ago. And you've had an amazing career in so many different areas, including academia. Certainly, while we have you on the line here, give us your reaction to how this situation has played out, leading to the resignation of the Harvard president and the other president before she resigned. One still to go here. I'm speaking of the participants in that congressional hearing last month. What's your reaction to how this is playing out?
Well, that woman who was the president of Harvard should never have been there in the first place. She had been nailed over and over again for really blatant and serious plagiarism. And the Harvard faculty and Board of Trustees or Board of Overseers or whatever they're calling themselves these days should never have put her in a job like that. And once the world knew that this woman had a very checkered career as an academic, they shouldn't have kept her there. I mean, I think it would have been better for her, better for Harvard, better for everyone concerned if she had just slipped quietly out the door after the first couple of dozen instances of clear-cut plagiarism were made known. And I'm sure she's a fine person and a good friend to her friends and family, but she shouldn't have been there. It was just nuts for her to have been in that job.
It's early business people insisted on her resignation. Bill Ackman, the big Harvard guy who was also a big contributor, contributed millions to Harvard, certainly took the point on a lot of this. And of course, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik from New York, who questioned the three university presidents, certainly demanded their resignation. And now looks like you think the final one, the last one there, will resign?
Yes, I should think so. Why wouldn't they keep resigning until they're all gone? The problem is, Frank, very old pal, everybody was on that ill-fated sinking ship, and so few of them had the courage or decency to resign, and now the wolves are coming after them with good reason. There's, as I say, if you catch a person lying, shame on you, him rather, or her. If you catch him 18 times or 24 times or however many times it was for that lady at Harvard, and you don't make her resign, it's not shame on her, shame on you. And Harvard is a very, very, very big name in the world of academics. I went to Yale for law school, not to Harvard, and they have plenty to apologize for too. But gosh, the idea that you could keep a person in a job at that level when her misconduct was so clearly apparent.
It could be information to change your life forever. Or the Something You Should Know podcast could just be something interesting.
Well, one person who understands dogs better than most is Jen Golbeck, and she is author of a book called The Purest Bond, Understanding the Human Canine Connection.
People who went on weight loss plans with their dog lost more weight, and it's just a really interesting connection about how our own weight and our dog's weight is tied together.
Something You Should Know, wherever you listen.
What companies deserve your hard-earned dollar? Which would you want to work for? How can you know if they share your values? Just ask us. Just Capital is a nonprofit that tracks who really means business in supporting workers, customers, communities, the environment, and shareholders. We measure progress, track success, and help them be better. When you see the Just Capital seal, you know what's real, because just business is better business. Visit justcapital.com to learn who makes your dollar count.
It was really shocking. Although, let's back up a tiny little bit, Frank. You know who another very famous plagiarist is in a high position. His name is Mr. Biden. He's president of the United States. He should never have been in that job. He should never have been a senator from a wonderful state like Delaware. So that's unfortunate as well. But why shouldn't all the college presidents who refuse to say clear-cut truth, namely that there's a nauseating wave of anti-Semitism washing through America's universities, why shouldn't all of them be held to account and asked to resign?
On the Air Live with Ben Stein, and it should be noted, and correct me if I'm wrong, weren't you the valedictorian in your Yale Law School class?
I was, sir, but let me emphasize, I did not by any means have the best grades. We did something that had never been done before, and I think has not been done since. We students, very, very small class, I think there were only about 80 of us in the whole class, voted who should be the valedictorian, and I won almost unanimously because I stood up to the teachers, not law students in the audience, and have never seen the level of bullying and cruelty that a law school teacher can inflict upon his students. I won't quite get it, but once you've seen that, you see that the students now have a chance to strike back. The people who've seen that will not fail to get it, and they shouldn't fail to get it. It's really a disgrace. It's just a disgrace that this happens in law schools. It's a disgrace that happens, frankly, in almost all graduate schools, and I think probably in quite a few undergraduate schools as well. But there has to be a thorough house cleaning in America's colleges and universities. They have just become cesspools of racist hatred. I mean, it's interesting. They claim to be fighting against racism themselves, but there is no more concentrated area of racism, and a really cruel racism, in America than there is in today's colleges and universities. It's just really unfortunate. Where it came from is a very good question, because I don't think it was there when I was in college, which was quite a while ago, to be sure. But where did it suddenly explode from?
Let's put your political commentary hat on now, with the Supreme Court possibly taking up the case about former President Trump's ability to run again for the White House. The Supreme Court set to hold its regular meeting on Friday, giving the justices a chance to react to the decisions in Colorado and Maine that former President Trump was not eligible for ballots in those states. So what's your reaction to this big news here, and what do you think is going to happen possibly on Friday?
I am stunned that those decisions in Colorado and Maine are allowed to remain in force for even an hour. That everyone who knows even a little bit about law and about the Constitution of the United States knows that those amendments to the Constitution, not part of the Bill of Rights, but amendments nonetheless, were instigated to keep people who have been part of the Confederacy, part of the war against the United States itself, from running for office and unquestionably being elected, because they would be running from former slave states and would have a very serious grudge against the United States of America for its fighting against them and killing a great many of their young men. So, but these people, like Mr. Trump, who didn't even instigate any violence at all, and I'm one of the few people who has actually read Mr. Trump's speech in which he spoke to his followers and did not urge them to go and do anything violent, said specifically, don't go up to Capitol Hill. If you have any thought of doing anything violent, don't go there. Don't invoke my name. I want everything peaceful. And people just ignored those crucial parts of his commentary. And that was disgraceful, and I think a slimy attempt to make him seem like an actual traitor, which has never even remotely been true.
Turning to geopolitics, we have the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, and the Red Sea situation now, with the U.S. locking horns with Iran, with an Iranian warship now in that region as well. What do you see happening here as the war presses on there? And, of course, then we have Russia and Ukraine on top of that.
Well, there was a story in the New York Times a few days ago, I think it was on Sunday, New Year's Day, about the incredible, unimaginable atrocities against women, against Jewish women and girls in the captured areas near the Israel-Gaza border, in which the rapes and sexual atrocities against women were enumerated, and hundreds of Israeli Jewish women and girls were basically tortured to death by the Hamas cruelty sadist maniacs, and yet even so, there are a great many people in this world who at least say they are sympathetic to Hamas as compared with Israel. And I am just bowled over that this could happen in the world as it is. It's just, I mean, these people have committed these atrocities, and I mean really atrocities, multiple rapes against teenage girls, wouldn't matter if they're teenagers or older or younger, to the point that the girls died. Incredible atrocities involving the fire equipment against these young girls' genitals. And there's still a question about which party is more responsible and more guilty, Israel or Hamas. How can that possibly be, except it cannot be explained except as the most vile kind of anti-Semitism, more vile than many of the explanations of Hitler and his gang about their feelings about Jews. I mean, and yet, even so, at the UN, a considerable majority of the members are against Israel more than they are against Hamas. In the Democrat Party, something very close to 50% of the members of the Democrat Party say Israel is to blame and not Hamas for the horrifying things that happened in that region. How the hell can we explain that except in terms of a vile, gut-wrenching anti-Semitism such as I think none of us would have expected to see after World War II.
Absolutely shocking and unthinkable. You're absolutely right about that. And Ben Stein, now tensions heating up between the U.S. and Iran. In fact, the U.S. and 12 allies issuing what amounted to a final warning to Iranian-backed rebels to cease their attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. Are we approaching a direct confrontation with Iran at this point?
Oh, very much approaching it. I'd say we're right on top of it. Will it be against Iran itself? I don't know. Certainly against the servants and clients of Iran, yes. Where did the Houthis, or however that's pronounced, get those very accurate missiles that could hit a ship at some distance from shore quite accurately? Those aren't things you can make in your basement. So someone's giving them to the so-called rebels. And it has to be North Korea, and North Korea has to be getting it from either the Russians or the Chinese. These are bad actors. I mean, these are people who really want to make trouble. And in that region of the world, if trouble is made, it doesn't just stay in one little place, in one little county of Yemen or wherever the hell these people come from. It can spread all over the world. It can spread in terms of price of petroleum products, and it can spread in terms of violence. And this is extremely bad. We're very good. We're very happy and lucky that we have a good Navy. It's deeply unfortunate that our next-door neighbor and formerly good friend, Canada, refuses to join in any meaningful way in the struggle against world terrorism. But I think the United States Navy can handle it. And let's every night say a prayer for our sailors.
Certainly. Ben Stein, wish we had more time. A serious world as we move into 2024 here. It's always great to connect with you, and we'll continue our Frankenstein conversations in the new year. We wish you and everyone there, first of all, a beautiful evening and a happy and healthy, prosperous new year. Ben Stein, thank you very much for taking the call here tonight.
God bless you, Frank. God bless you. God bless America.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Frank and Stein here tonight. Ben Stein with us on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Gorgeous rainbow this afternoon in Los Angeles, but not all rainbows and ice cream cones on Wall Street today, with the Dow down 285 points coming off its record high, which we achieved yesterday. We're back to 37,430. The S&P 500 slid 38, and the NASDAQ down 173 as tech names continue to take a hit. On the first trading day of the year, we saw the NASDAQ down nearly 2%, its biggest drop in more than 2 months. A downgrade of Apple had impacted the markets yesterday. We saw a continuing slide today in the tech names. The economic news also not so great, with job openings sliding to a 32-month low of 8.8 million in November, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Meanwhile, the latest report on manufacturing activity showed it contracted for the 14th consecutive month. Shares of Apple, by the way, down nearly 1% today after suffering the biggest drop in 4 months in the previous session. Taking a look at the price of gold right now, up $7 at $2,050. Oil up 33 cents at $73.04. Bitcoin down $258, back to $42,694. We see Ethereum down 19 at $22.08, and Doge at the moment at 8 cents. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Good evening and Happy New Year. Majority of people say TikTok is a threat to national security. That is, a majority of Americans say that. And according to a recent survey, about 6 in 10 of us Americans see TikTok as a major or minor threat to national security, according to a Pew Research Center survey of adults. It comes as TikTok faces scrutiny from lawmakers in Washington over its ties to China and the security of users' data. Meanwhile, the IRS not in compliance with the No TikTok Government Devices Act, No TikTok on Government Devices Act, according to a Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. That's the official IRS watchdog. Watching all of that closely and watching out for you, the American taxpayer, is Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, Happy New Year. Thanks very much for taking the call here tonight.
Oh, absolutely. It is exciting when the IRS decides they don't have to pay attention to laws that are designed to protect your financial data that you have to give to the IRS for them to help look and decide how much you owe in taxes. So they go, Congress passed a law to protect your data. We don't care. We won't do it.
How serious is this now with all the other things that you've highlighted, certainly at Americans for Tax Reform, and this situation now where, according to the official IRS watchdog, of course, you're a great watchdog as well. You're probably the unofficial IRS watchdog, right? So how serious is the situation now with IRS folks using TikTok?
Well, it's very serious. As you said, the Inspector General, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, TikTok, put out a report in December, just this last month, and it is, as you said, the official IRS watchdog. They examined one piece of the IRS, and that was, probably the most important, the criminal.
Business has always been about turning a profit, making money. But can it stand for something more? Something beyond dollars and cents? We think so. We think that today, business has a higher calling, a purpose to be fair and just, to do right by their workers, customers, communities, and the environment. And it turns out companies successful doing that also do better for their bottom line. When you see the Just Capital seal, it means this company is a force for good. Visit justcapital.com to learn more.
Get an inside look at Hollywood with Michael Rosenbaum.
Let's get inside of Jennifer Love Hewitt.
It's dangerous, I think, to say to women, you can't look like you're not 22 to me anymore because I don't know how to take that. Okay, well, that's your problem because I'm 44. This is what I look like. By the way, she was a looker. Like, congratulations to that 23 or 25.
But I'm a different person now.
Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, wherever you listen.
Investigation Division, the CI division. These are the people who are investigating what they think might be real crimes, which means they're very aggressive. They're getting all of data from somebody because they think somebody might not be paying their taxes. And then the IRS, it turns out, 2,800 mobile devices that are vulnerable to TikTok getting them the data and maybe sharing it with the Chinese. 900 of the employees for the criminal investigation had the ability to get access to TikTok website via their computers that were actually assigned to the criminal investigation, the CI division. So this is the most important secret data because the government takes so much and it's nobody's business, but they're investigating possible crimes, so they get it, and then people are putting it on machines, the iPhones, iPads, computers that are not protected. That's the requirement. In college, you may have been to a BYOB party, bring your own beer. What they have in the IRS is BYOD, bring your own device to work, okay? At the office, they have devices that are supposed to be protected by law against TikTok. But the IRS says, you can use your own iPhone for data and your own iPad, but it has to be set up to protect against TikTok. That's the law. They don't check. And as the investigator found, the Inspector General found, thousands of cases where there's a potential problem. They wrote a really nice letter, the Inspector General, to the IRS leadership and got an insulting letter back saying, we think it would be interfering with the constitutional rights of our employees if we said you have to protect the data of the American citizens because they have the right to leak data, to not take it seriously. There's no such right. Okay, you can always use a government computer, but if you bring your own, it has to be set up to protect it against TikTok going in and pulling out any data. That's what the IRS agents and leadership. It's not just several hundred bad guys in the IRS. This is the leadership of the IRS says, we don't care what the law says. We don't care what the law says. This is very scary.
Well, thanks for highlighting that important story. And if hackers did ultimately get into the Treasury Department, they would get away with negative $34 trillion at this point. The U.S. national debt surpassed $34 trillion for the first time just in the last week or so, right, Grover? I know you keep close track of that, and that number has ballooned to a level that was not expected for a number of years, right? What's your reaction to that big news this week?
Well, I think Biden's plan is to try and get the Chinese to steal our national debt, and then they're stuck with it.
That makes sense.
I don't know if that'll work.
Now it makes sense.
Everything else.
That is really something. But the total public debt outstanding reached $34.001 trillion as of just before the new year, just more than 3 months after first crossing the $33 trillion mark. So we're off and running here on the national debt.
And the entire GDP, everything produced in the United States, is about $27 trillion. So it's less than the debt.
All right. Well,
not good.
Well, Grover, thank you very much for that comprehensive update tonight on what's happening there in Washington. Look forward to many updates here in 2024. It's going to be a big year in many ways. So thank you very much for your expertise. We wish you and everyone there at the American taxpayer group there, the Americans for Tax Reform, where you're the president and do such a great job there. Look forward to celebrating the new year with you and getting your updates. Grover Norquist, thank you very much for joining us live here tonight.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Folks, it's time to start the new year off right with reminders from attorney Clark Fielding of Fielding Law. If you've been hurt in an accident that was not your fault, it's easy to feel lost in the sea of legal complexities. Fear not. Clark and his team of law sharks are here to navigate the legal waters for you. They have the expertise to tackle any case, big or small. Fielding Law is not just about providing legal advice. They're also about making sure you understand every step of the process. So consider them your partners in justice. Whether you're facing a sea of paperwork, swimming in contractual confusion, or caught in a legal undertow, Clark the Shark is the lifeguard you need. The Fielding Law team is dedicated to protecting your rights and ensuring a smooth journey through the legal currents. So if you dive into the new year, remember Fielding Law always has your back. They're not just lawyers. They're your fantastic friends in the legal world. Call them now. The number is 833-88-SHARK, 833-88-SHARK. Put it in your phone right now or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. That's clarkthesharklaw.com. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good evening and Happy New Year. Well, we've been hearing cheers on Wall Street lately, maybe not this week, but certainly as we closed out 2023 with the stock market hitting at record highs. But pain on Main Street, especially here in the Los Angeles area, as many restaurants have been closing. Did you hear the news in West Hollywood? IHOP, that big IHOP location in West Hollywood, has closed. LA's triple berry cake specialist Sweet Lady Jane suddenly closed at 6 locations as the new year began. The Cafe Roma in Beverly Hills also has closed. Long list of restaurant closures in 2023 and a lot of concerns as we enter 2024. Keeping track of all this is our small business hero here on 790 KBC, Angela Marsden, the owner of the Pineapple Hills Saloon and Grill in Sherman Oaks, a restaurant owner herself. Also, the SOS show host here on 790 KBC on Saturdays at 1 o'clock with Mike Netter. Angela, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you, Angela.
Happy New Year to you too, Frank. And I get very emotional when I hear those closures because I am a restaurant owner in LA, and I do feel like that community is my family. And obviously, you read the LA Times articles. I love the other article that they titled "The Year That Killed LA Restaurants." No, we've been being killed every year since COVID. I personally met with the mayor, and I'm sure I've shared this multiple times. I handed her a list of restaurants that never got the revitalization grant, even though they were promised. They didn't get it. And now the minimum wage, this thing that Gavin Newsom did, it breaks my heart because he is so in bed with the corporations. He knows that the corporations are going to automate those jobs until they don't need anybody. We have the first fully automated restaurant opening in Pasadena in April. He stands up there like he's a big hero championing $20 an hour for, McDonald's workers because he knows those jobs are going to be gone. And meanwhile, Main Street, mom and pop, we cannot afford the insurance, the minimum wage, the crime, the loss. We can barely survive. And I don't understand how to get people to hold the politicians accountable. They sell out your jobs. They pretend like they're doing you a favor by giving you what they call a higher minimum wage. But the economic reality is you can't get cash out of nothing. Restaurants can only turn a table so many times. We can only sell a hamburger for a certain amount of price to where, you know, a high-end restaurant, maybe you go out once every 6 months. You can't sustain on that. And they know exactly what they're doing. The politicians literally have chased all the good businesses off that actually support the small businesses and pay the taxes, and they're now trying to put the burden of all of that on minimum wage and small mom and pop shops. This is just the beginning. And Frank, how long have I been talking to you and telling people this? This is not a surprise to me, but it is heartbreaking. I literally am in tears right now. It is heartbreaking. These are the restaurants and the people that care about LA. These businesses care about your teenage son when they hire him. They care about the actor who's struggling, the musicians. You know, they have restricted us with music to the point where there's no place for musicians to really go to start their gigs or their careers. Actors, we can't hire as many people as we used to keep you guys going. They are literally a cut by a thousand knives. And I've said it before. And I don't know how much more time I have right now because I know we have a small segment. I hope everybody please comes over to SOS Los Angeles and listens to me at 1:05 on Saturdays. But something has got to be done. And I am telling you right now, I have pleaded with the mayor's office. I have directly spoke with the mayor and with the small business office and said, you know, hold the taxes for a year. You know, don't charge sales taxes. Freeze the minimum wage. You have to help the small businesses survive. We are not corporations. We don't want to automate our employees out. If you have 300 or less employees, you should be a different bracket for all these laws. It's outrageous. And as the restaurants die, Frank, guess what else dies? The community, going out and having good times, celebrating a funeral, having, you know, meeting your neighbors, maybe meeting your first love and getting married. All these wonderful things that we do in this great experiment of LA, and we have some of the best, are not going to be available to us anymore. And they literally, with the minimum wage, do you know what they've done? They've literally created rich and poor. So if you're uber rich, you can still go out and eat 3 or 4 times a week. But if you make $150,000 and you have some kids, you cannot afford to go out and eat all the time. And it's heartbreaking to me. And I don't know how, Frank, you tell me, how do we wake this city up to the point that they vote differently and they get enraged that their culture is literally being sucked out of LA? The people that care about LA are being killed. And I don't, you know, it's basic economics. Can we please start, you know, common sense and basic economics? My mom always said, money does not grow on trees, Frank. It doesn't grow on trees. And I can tell you, there's only so many times you can turn a table over. So there's only so much money you can make. When your liability insurance goes up 100%, you're paying $20 an hour in minimum wage. You can't sustain that. You can't without passing it on to the customer. And then it diminishes the customer's quality of life. And they can't come out. I don't understand. So you want a bunch of people to get $20 an hour, but then the other half are going to lose their jobs. And then in 5 years, when the corporations are tired of bending to that, they'll have it fully automated. So everybody loses their jobs. This is insanity. These people are insane. They do not care. They do not care. I can tell you fully, I have begged them. I have begged the small business office. I have begged Mayor Bass. Do something to give the restaurants and the small businesses a break. We cannot take any more, and they are all going to go under, and nobody listens to me until it happens. And then they're still not doing anything, Frank. They're still not doing anything.
Angela, thanks for laying it on thick as always and absolutely crushing what's happening here. But people are listening to you, and you are a real leader here. And thank you very much for laying it on, telling it like it is here tonight. And for those who want to hear more from Angela, tune in at 1 o'clock on Saturdays to the SOS Los Angeles Family Food and the Little Guy Show with Mike Netter right here on 790 KBC. Angela, God bless you for all your important work, and hang in there. We love you and look forward to speaking with you again very soon right here. We wish you and everyone there a happy new year. And We'll continue here with Royal Oaks on the 790 KBC News Blitz coming your way next. You're on 790 KBC.
What companies deserve your hard-earned dollar? Which would you want to work for? How can you know if they share your values? Just ask us. Just Capital is a nonprofit that tracks who really means business in supporting workers, customers, communities, the environment, and shareholders. We measure progress, track success, and help them be better. When you see the Just Capital seal, you know what's real, because just business is better business. Visit justcapital.com to learn who makes your dollar count.